What up, what up, what up? Hello, my peeps. It's a new week, which means a new episode of Chit Chat with Bernie Bella. I'm your host, Bernadine. Welcome to episode 35. So we're just, quietly chugging along. We're at episode 35. That means for 35 weeks, you guys have been tuning into me every week. Let me know if you can hear me clearly. Drop a comment, say hello, share the live. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. We stream live Thursdays at 9 p.m. on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And for this week, a few of the topics we'll be discussing tonight are the weekly COVID updates. The numbers are going up and there are new measures being put in place. We're going to discuss those, discussing the Klansman gang trial, the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. O.J. Simpson is a free man officially. Megan Thee Stallion graduates. Derek Chavin pleads guilty. Again, COVID roundup and other stories. So stay tuned in. Previous episodes can be found on our YouTube channel. So visit the site, like, comment, subscribe, and set your notifications to get notified when we go live. So if you're tuning in, say hello, say hi. This is a talk show where we discuss sports, politics, current affairs, entertainment, gossip, and news, what's happening in our community specific to Canada and Jamaica, with a little bit of the world thrown in. Your thoughts and opinions are always welcome. So as usual, we're going to start with our entertainment section. And starting our entertainment section in Jamaica, the Jamaica Constabulary Force is reminding the public that no permit has been granted for the hosting of parties during the Christmas season. So Assistant Commissioner of Police Gary McKenzie said that the JCF will be strictly enforcing the Disaster Risk Management Act, the DRMA, especially where the gathering of persons is concerned. At this particular time, we're not issuing any permits for persons to host parties to be together. And before you know it, by next year, we're in problems as it relates to our health status, said McKenzie, who is also head of the JCF's Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch. Under the DRMA, the general public gathering limit remains at 10 persons, and the limit on the number of persons in attendance at a place of worship remains at 100. However, no crusades, conferences, or conventions are permitted. The number of persons permitted to physically attend a wedding remains at 100. McKenzie said that persons who breach a gathering limit will be charged. Them not play with them, let not play. Hey Nadine, blessings to you. Hope all is well. Let me know if you guys can hear me clearly. Drop a comment, say hello, say hi. Let's see. So going to the USA. Kim Kardashian West has insisted no counseling or reconciliation effort will repair her marriage to Kanye. She filed for divorce from the rapper in February, and despite his recent public pleas for them to get back together, the 41-year-old beauty submitted further paperwork a few days ago asking for the process to be bifurcated so she can be declared legally single. Kim, who has 4 kids with Kanye, is looking for a speedy and amicable resolution to the split and want issues of property and child custody to be dealt with separately. In documents submitted, her legal team wrote, Kim has been attempting to settle this matter since she filed her petition for dissolution of marriage in February 2021. Kanye has been delaying the matter, so to speak. He's not been making himself available. He's not been making himself available for the documentations and stuff like that. Kim has moved on. She's in a relationship with Pete Davis, or is supposed to be in a relationship with Pete Davis. So don't know how that's going to go, but she just wants to get divorced and move on. Can't say I blame her. She's also announced recently that she passed her baby bar exam. She's studying to become a lawyer, and there are different ways of becoming a lawyer in California. And in the manner in which she's doing it, she has to take 2 bar exams. So she said she tried and failed 3 times, and just got back up, studied harder, did what she had to do, and passed the first bar. So she's got another one that she's got to do. So, kudos to her for she could just live off her millions that she has, but she's decided that she wants more and better for herself, and she wants different things. So she's going for it. Another person who's pursuing her scholars is Megan Thee Stallion, the 3-time Grammy Award winner, graduated last Saturday from Texas University with a Bachelor of Science degree in health administration, achieving a long-held goal that has remained close to her heart amid her catapult to fame. Megan was inspired by her late mother, Holly Thomas, who died in March 2019 after suffering from brain cancer. I want to get my degree because I really want my mom to be proud, Megan said. In a previous lifetime, Megan said that she wanted to be an administrator at a hospital. So she wanted to be the person to run the hospital. She doesn't think that would probably work out for her with her singing career. So what she's decided to do now is buy or build a nursing home. And that's how she'll still be able to manage that particular career path for her. Good night, Enid. How are you? How are things? For some reason, I don't see you on screen. I just see you on my phone. Not quite sure what's happening, but hello, Enid. Staying in the USA, O.J. Simpson is officially a free man. The 74-year-old former football hero and actor acquitted California murder defendant and convicted Las Vegas armed robber was granted good behavior credits and discharged from parole effective December 1st in Nevada. Mr. Simpson is a completely free man now, said Malcolm Laverne, Simpson's lawyer in Las Vegas. Simpson declined an immediate interview, and the attorney declined to talk about what Simpson's future plans were. So he's officially free, no longer under parole, no longer, restricted. He can fly wherever he wants to in the USA and all of that stuff. So not quite sure. So, good for him. He stayed out of trouble long enough to, not be sent back to jail. Rudolph Garth Dennis, a founding member of Grammy Award-winning reggae band Black Uhuru and the Wailing Souls group, celebrated his 72nd birthday about a week and a half ago and then died suddenly last Friday. His death was confirmed by international music business consultant Lloyd Stanbury, who told the Gleaner that the news of the musician's death is like a double blow amongst close friends. His contribution to reggae music came with the pioneering reggae band Black Uhuru in the 1970s, with the original members who recorded the memorable hits, folk songs, Time Is On Our Side, and Slow Coach before separating. In 1984, Black Uhuru made history as the first Jamaicans ever to win the prestigious Grammy Award for their album Anthem. Garth has left behind his wife, 2 sons, and grandchildren. And earlier, last Saturday, former Toronto Mayor Mel Lastman died. He was 88. He died at his home on Saturday afternoon. He served for 6 years as the first mayor of the mega city when all the different cities merged, York, North York, East York, and all of that. They all merged and became mega city Toronto. So he was the first mayor. Prior to that, he was the mayor of North York for a number of years, about 24, 25 years. He's survived by his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. His wife, Marilyn, died last January 2020. Mel Lastman was buried on Monday. And another person that impacted a lot of lives, trailblazing author, poet, feminist, cultural critic, and professor Bell Hooks died Wednesday at age 69. Her death was first announced by her niece, Ebony Motley, who said that she had died at home surrounded by family and friends. Apparently, she had been sick for a while, and it was kept, well, it wasn't kept hush hush. Those who needed to know, and those who didn't, that's how it is. But condolences to the Last Man family, condolences to the Hooks family, and may their souls rest in peace. Hopefully, her families, able to find some peace in knowing that whatever illness she was suffering from, she's no longer suffering from that particular illness. She did quite a lot during her lifetime. She was born Gloria Jean Watkins. She's the fourth of 7 children in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. On September 25th, 1952, she attended segregated schools in her native Christian County, Kentucky, before earning her undergrad degree at Stanford University in California, a master's degree in English at the University of Wisconsin, and a doctorate in literature at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And she was never one to want anybody to call her Dr. Hooks. She was just fine with Bell. So I've read a few of her books and stuff and her papers that she's written, and it's quite interesting. So it is a prolific. She's a prolific author. It's a blow to the community. So rest in peace to Bell Hooks. Moving on to our sports section. And Raptors lost their last game against Brooklyn Nets on Tuesday. The game went into overtime. Raptors should have won that game because the Nets were playing with limited players. They should have won it in regulation. Didn't happen. Went to overtime, and they, just couldn't make the difference. Couldn't win. So they're presently 13-15 and sits 11th in the Eastern Conference. They're still missing several of their players due to various injuries and stuff. They were supposed to play Chicago today, but due to Chicago Bulls not having enough players to play due to COVID, that particular game has been postponed. So hopefully the extended time off will give them time to rest and we can get our players back and we can start winning, because we do need to make the playoffs. Sitting 11th right now will not work. The Argos, as you may recall, there were some scuffles at the Hamilton Ticats and the Argos Eastern Conference Finals games a couple of weeks ago. Well, the Argos have now fired their Vice President of Player Personnel, John Murphy, following that altercation. He was suspended after the game, but they've now dismissed him. No further reasons were given, but just speculating that it's because of the fight with the fans. And with the Maple Leafs, they're still on a winning trail. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. They still sit first in the Atlantic Division. Their record right now is 20-8 with, I think, 2 overtime losses. And they're also not playing tonight due to health and safety protocols, because the other team that they were supposed to play, that particular team can't play because they don't have, because a lot of their members are battling the COVID virus. So, we'll see what happens. And that's it for our sports tonight. So if you've just joined, say hello, say hi. Let me know where you are dialing from. Let me know where you're, watching from. Enid, I'm not quite sure what's happening. I can see you because I'm watching on my phone, but I can't see you when you make a comment on, it doesn't show up live. I'm not quite sure why that is. I see Nana's, but I don't see yours, so I'm not quite sure. But thanks for tuning in. Hope your week was well. So thanks for tuning in. So we're going to move on to our news section of the program, and we're going to start in Arizona. And a Phoenix woman is dead from what police are calling a homicide tied to a possible road rage shooting. Police who responded to the scene of a white SUV that had crashed into a wall just before 2 p.m. on Thursday found the driver, 38-year-old Stella Montez, suffering from a gunshot wound. Phoenix police said in a news release. Montez was rushed to a hospital but died from her injury. Brooke Raspa, a woman who lives on the other side of the wall near the North Phoenix intersection where the accident occurred, said she heard 8 to 10 gunshots prior to the crash and felt my whole house vibrate when the van hit the wall. Raspa said she then heard screams for help from someone who turned out to be the victim's daughter. We went up over the hill and the lady was stuck in the vehicle and we were trying to pull her out, and the police showed up and told us to get out of the way, and he started CPR immediately, said Raspa. According to the TV news outlet, she was non-responsive from the very beginning. She said the daughter described the incident, saying that Montez allegedly pulled up behind another vehicle at the intersection and then honked the horn, trying to prod the driver in front to move forward. They honked at him to go, not realizing that it was no turn on red, and then they decided to go around him, and that angered him, apparently, Raspa said. So he drove by and probably emptied a whole clip. The news release said police did not have a vehicle or suspect description, but acknowledged the report that Montez was shot by a person in another vehicle after a traffic altercation. This investigation is in the preliminary stages, police said in the statement released, and detectives are working to determine more information about what led up to the incident. Can you imagine? Somebody honk you and then move around. You take somebody got shot and killed because of, man, people are crazy nowadays. People are crazy. Anyways, we're circling around to Florida, and a once standout U.S. narcotics agent who used his badge to build a lavish lifestyle of expensive cars, parties on yachts, and Tiffany jewels was sentenced to more than 12 years in federal prison Thursday for conspiring to launder money with a Colombian cartel. But even as Jose Irizarry admitted to his crimes, he blamed former colleagues at the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration for fostering a culture of corruption that desensitized him to the implications of violating the law. Huh? When my client joined the DEA, he was schooled in how to be corrupt. He was schooled in how to break the law, his attorney, Maria Dominguez, said in court. In this alternate universe, it became easier and less suspect to accept money and gifts from criminal informants who worked with the U.S. Premier Narcotics Agency. U.S. District Court Judge Charlene Honeywell, in handing down her sentence, expressed disgust with the DEA for its failings and said other agents corrupted by the allure of easy money also needed to be investigated. Irizarry's allegations underscore the porous oversight he received during his career, in which he was entrusted with the government's use of front companies, shell bank accounts, and couriers to combat international drug trafficking. They also raised new questions about whether his colleagues in the Miami field office, where Irizarry's criminal activity began, similarly abused the badge in their handling of confidential informants who every year moves tens of millions of dollars in dirty money under the DEA's supervision. Dominguez in court filings revealed that since Irizarry's arrest last year, he has met with prosecutors for endless hours to provide information on the criminal activities of fellow law enforcement agents who initiated him in a life of crime. Honeywell recently sealed sensitive documents filed in the criminal case, saying their disclosure could potentially impede an ongoing criminal investigation. cause targets to flee, and hinder cooperation from other witnesses. So far, other than Irizarry's wife, Natalie Gomez Irizarry, and a Colombian customs worker, nobody else has been charged in the conspiracy. The DEA hired Irizarry, 47, and allowed him to handle sensitive financial transactions even after he failed a polygraph exam, declared bankruptcy, and kept close ties to a suspected money launderer who would go on to become the godfather of the agent's twin daughters with his Colombian wife. He pled guilty last year to 19 federal counts, including bank fraud, admitting he parlayed his expertise in money laundering into a life of luxury that prosecutors said was bankrolled by $9 million. He and his co-conspirators diverted from undercover money laundering. The spoils included a $30,000 Tiffany diamond ring for his wife, luxury sports car, and a $767,000 home in the Caribbean resort city of Cartagena, on top of residences in South Florida and Puerto Rico. Before he resigned in 2018, Irizarry's ostentatious habits and tales of raucous yacht parties had become well known among DEA agents and prosecutors with whom they worked. To further this scheme, prosecutors said, Irizarry filed false reports and ordered DEA staff to wire money slated for undercover stings to international accounts he and associates controlled. The money should have been carefully tracked by the DEA as part of undercover money laundering investigations, prosecutors said. Irizarry has claimed the bank accounts in question amounted to a profit-producing slush fund for official and personal travel of federal law enforcement, U.S. prosecutors, and confidential sources. Dominguez said Irizarry accepted full responsibility for his actions, but that his take of the conspiracy never surpassed $600,000. At Thursday's sentencing, Irizarry broke down in tears as he addressed the court, saying the biggest punishment was not being able to explain to his two young daughters why he would be going away for so long. He said when he became a federal law enforcement agent 2 decades ago, he did so with a sense of great pride. Unfortunately, there came a time when I made a decision that went against a person who I was, that damaged my wife and embarrassed my country, he said. I should have known better and I didn't. I failed. $9 million you and your colleagues managed to steal. Yikes. Hi Enid. No, I can't see it. For some reason, Enid, your comments aren't popping up. I'm not quite sure why. I can see you on my phone, so I know that you're asking if I can see you, but for some reason it's not popping up where it normally comes up. I'm not quite sure why that's happening, but so I'll just have to monitor the phone and my computer to see what's happening with that. So hey Richard, hey Barry. Drop a comment, say hello, say hi. I don't know why that's happening. We're going to circle around to Jamaica, and the Ian Fleming International Airport will soon begin weekly scheduled international flights out of the Turks and Caicos Islands with Inter-Caribbean Airways. The announcement was made by Minister of Transport and Mining Robert Montague at the Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services 8th Annual Road Safety Awareness 40-day campaign on Thursday. Montague said the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority has approved for Inter-Caribbean Airways to begin scheduled flights out of the Ian Fleming International Airport. These will be small flights, no more than, I think, 30 or 50 seats. That will also bring money into that particular economy. It will be one of the smallest international airport, and they're stating that it will pump more than $2 million into the Jamaican economy on a yearly basis. So they started They started building the airport, I think, back in 2018, and they're going to extend some of the buildings and all of that. So small flights will be able to, fly into that airport as opposed to going to Kingston or going to Montego Bay. So, direct flights from Turks and Caicos and other islands, smaller flights, propeller flights, that's where a lot of them can be directed to, which makes sense. So, and, private jet owners and stuff, they'll be able to fly into that airport as opposed to going into Kingston or Montego Bay. So moving on to the next part, we're going to go to New York. And the mutilated body of a New York woman who has been missing for 3 weeks was found in a wooded state park near her Long Island home after she was allegedly stabbed 20 times by her enraged husband for having an affair. Melissa Molinari, age 38, a mother of 4 from Center Reach, was found in Rocky Point Pine Barrens State Forest in Middle Island on Thursday after police used GPS features on her husband's phone to track down the body. The mother of 4 was last seen on November 21st at her son's soccer game and was reported missing by a friend on December 2nd. Her husband, Marcello Molinari, age 43, was arrested on Thursday and charged on 1 count of second-degree murder after being booked at First District Court in Central Islip. Prosecutors said he had been planning her murder for weeks after finding out about his wife's affair during a Disney World trip in early November. Yikes. The marriage reportedly began to fall apart after Molinari's husband was informed of her infidelity during their vacation to Disney World, and the trip was cut short on November 5th. It is not clear who told him about her alleged affair. After returning home from the trip, Marcello began researching countries where he couldn't be extradited for homicide, according to prosecutors. He had also undergone plastic facial surgery and joined a dating website. Marcello reported that the couple had gotten into an argument on November 23rd before she had packed her belongings and left with an unidentified man. Molinari did not return to the home, but allegedly phoned her husband 2 days later on Thanksgiving to tell him to start preparing dinner. An investigation was launched after Molinari was reported missing by her friend on December 2nd. On Wednesday, Marcello granted police permission to search his wife's minivan. A K-9 unit with a team then found blood in the back seat, which allowed cops to get a search warrant of the family home on 45 Lolly Lane. The police found traces of blood in the basement, according to prosecutors. Cops also were given access to Marcello's cell phone, leading investigators to discover that he had visited the Pine Barrens, which is about 20 miles from their home, on November 23rd and December 3rd. A search of the wooded area on Thursday led cops to Molinari's body, which was found wrapped in a plastic bag with 20 stab wounds to the torso. We're working under the theory that the house is the crime scene, the car was used to transport her, and she was placed in the Pine Barrens, Suffolk Homicide Commanding Officer Detective Lieutenant Kevin Bayer said. The couple's 4 children, aged 4 to 17, are currently staying with a family friend with another child from Marcello's previous relationship. "20 stab wound? 20 times? Man, you were pissed. If you had turned off your phone, why men think them own woman, I will never understand it. She cheat, you move on. Or she cheat, you go cheat if you don't want to move on. But why you gonna kill the woman? Now you're going to jail for life and you're putting them left for road now with no parents. It don't make sense. Move on. Find another girl. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. We're going to move on to Chicago. And an off-duty Chicago police officer was taken into custody Thursday morning after a woman was found fatally shot inside a home in Galewood on the northwest side. Officers were called to the home in the 2100 block off North Nashville Avenue about 10:10 a.m. for a well-being check and found Andres Wofford, age 29, dead from a gunshot wound to the head. An autopsy ruled her death a homicide. The officer was taken into custody at the scene and was being questioned by Area 5 detectives. The officer has been relieved of his police powers. Sources said the officer had a child with Wofford who had filed a complaint against the officer in the past, alleging domestic violence, Cook County prosecutor said during a bond hearing. The couple had one prior documented domestic dispute, but charges were never filed in that case. During their relationship, Tyler had a second child with another woman, which led to an argument on December 5th when Wofford learned he had a pending child support hearing. The next day, Wofford, thinking Tyler had secretly married the mother of his other child, decided to confront Tyler, telling several family members she was going to do so. About 4 p.m. on Wednesday, Tyler went to Wofford's apartment building in the 2100 block of North Nashville with surveillance video showing him walking in the front door for a unit. Between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., Wofford contacted family members from her cell phone, asking them to pick up her child from daycare. Neighbors allegedly heard Tyler and Wofford arguing around 7 p.m., with one neighbor reporting a loud, muffled bang sometime between 8:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. No more arguing was heard after that, prosecutors said. Surveillance video allegedly showed Tyler leaving the back door of the apartment at 9:02 p.m. with a gun inside a holster on his back. No one else was seen entering or exiting the apartment throughout the evening. Wofford's father, who had been watching her child, got a text message from her phone at 9:11 p.m. saying she would be there in a bit, but she never showed up. The next morning, her parents called police, who found Wofford inside the front door of the apartment with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. She was killed by a 9mm bullet matching the caliber of a pistol. Tyler claimed to detectives that he left at Wofford's apartment. That gun wasn't found. Her keys and cell phone were missing too. Tyler, a CPD tactical officer who joined the force in 2016, allegedly told investigators he was at Wofford's apartment until 9 p.m. and then left to meet a confidential informant for work. But his partner said they weren't with him and that it would be abnormal for Tyler to go on his own. Tyler, who's a Prosser High School graduate, served in the U.S. Army for 8 years. His attorneys calling the evidence against Tyler circumstantial, and a judge has ordered him jailed without bond. His next scheduled court appearance is December 21st. Then, sir, you couldn't just have a little conversation and then go about your business? Again, another man up in his feelings, taking the life of the mother of his child, him gone to jail, the mother dead, and the child is now left to be raised by somebody else. That's not making sense. Not making sense. We're going to move on to Minnesota, and Derek Chavin, the police officer who was found guilty of murdering George Floyd, and he has started serving his 22.5-year sentence. He had earlier pleaded not guilty on the federal portion of the charges. He has since changed his plea, and on yesterday, he reversed the plea and decided to plead guilty on the federal charges as a part of a deal with the U.S. prosecutors. The agreement means he will not face trial in January. It may also result in a federal lighter sentence for Chavin. The federal charges against Chavin include 2 counts against him for depriving Mr. Floyd of his rights by kneeling on his neck as he was in handcuffs and by failing to provide medical care during the May 2020 arrest. As a part of the plea, Chavin also pleaded guilty to violating the rights of a then 14-year-old boy during another arrest that took place in 2007. And in that incident, Chavin held the boy, who was black, by the throat, hit him in the head with a flashlight, and held his knees on the boy's neck and upper back while he was handcuffed and not resisting. Chavin, who has appealed his state murder conviction, has been in solitary confinement in a Minnesota prison since April. The guilty plea on federal charges is likely to extend Chavin's jail time beyond his existing one. U.S. prosecutors are recommending up to 300 months, which is 25 years in prison for the civil charges. If he gets that, it'll run concurrently with his other sentence. So it would just give him probably an additional 3 years in prison. The other officers that were charged with him, the other 3 officers that were charged with him, they haven't gone to trial yet. They're scheduled to go to trial in, I think, March of next year. So we'll see how that particular trial goes. But he's not like in jail right now. Not like in jail right now, but moving on. We're going to do a COVID roundup for the evening. If you've just joined, say hello, say hi, share the live, drop a comment, let me know who's joined me. And we're starting in Nigeria with our COVID roundup. There's so much happening with COVID right now. Nigeria plans to ban flights from Argentina, Britain, Canada, and Saudi Arabia from this week in retaliation for being added to those countries' red lists over the detection of the Omicron virus. The Omicron variant of the coronavirus. It's crazy. Enid says, too bad for him. Nana says, oh dear. Let's see. Yeah. No. It has since, so that particular virus, Omicron, has since spread to at least 57 other countries. It's wreaking havoc in England and everywhere else. So in Jamaica, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has advised that come Monday, December 20th, digital vaccination cards will be made available to the public. That's in Jamaica. And in the UK, they recorded the highest number of confirmed COVID-19 infections on Wednesday with over 40,000 new COVID cases, with most of them being the Omicron variant. And they're saying the situation is likely to get worse as the Omicron variant drives a new wave of illness during the Christmas holidays. Whitty has advised people to limit their social contacts, putting a priority on those that are the most important. And also the U.S. government yesterday, they sent more a third shipment of Pfizer vaccine to Jamaica. So over 204,000 doses was sent by the U.S. That will make it now that they've sent almost 620 doses to Jamaica. So far, I think Jamaica have gotten about almost closer to 1.5 million doses of the vaccine so far. So hi, Janet. Thanks for checking in. Hey, Les. Thanks for checking in. How are you? Hope you guys had a good week. Hope all is well with you guys. Enid, possibly if you can go on YouTube. I don't know if it'll make a difference, Enid, if you go on my YouTube channel and try watching from there and commenting from there and see if that makes a difference. Staying with our COVID roundup, they're saying that vaccines are not enough to curb the spread of the new Omicron variant, and they're saying that we should double mask, not travel. The federal government has issued another blanket warning against non-essential travel. So they haven't shut down the borders. They're not leaning to doing that. They're asking us, however, to not do non-essential travels. I'm not sure how that's going to work with the holiday and everybody just wanting to get up, get out and do stuff. The only thing for me for traveling at this point of the season is not knowing what changes are going to be made and if I will get stranded someplace. Because the way things are going, the rule that when you leave the country and the rule that's in place when you're leaving the country may not necessarily be the same rule that you come back to, or the rule can change while you're away and you get stuck being away. So for right now, I am staying put until them know what them I do, because I don't want to go somewhere and get stuck and then can't come home. That's not right. Not right at all. So that's, that's a COVID roundup. There's a lot going on with this new variant. There's different information coming out. They're saying that it's more airborne. They're stating that you need to wear the blue mask. You need to wear 2 of those as opposed to just one. Still social distance and all of that. But for people who are wanting to go near families and stuff, they're giving out rapid tests at all LCBO stores. I know Square One, Bramley, Yorkdale, and other malls and stuff. There are specific stores there that you can go and get the free rapid test. There's 5 tests in each kit, and you can get the kits for free. What that does is you can take the test at home. It gives you your results instantly, and then you can, go wherever you want to go. So that's something that you can do for this holidays. So the corona numbers, there's a slight uptick in Canada so far. 1.86 million have been tested, 30,010 have died, with an increase of 148 over last week's numbers. Worldwide, it's 272 people that have been tested. 5.3 million have been 272 million have been tested, 5.33 million have died, with an increase of 50,000 over last week's numbers. In Ontario, 639,000 have been tested, 10,102 have died, with an increase of 48 over last week's numbers. And in Jamaica, 91,868 people have been tested, 2,432 people have died, with an increase of 17 over last week's numbers. And for Jamaica, that's not bad because their numbers were trending a lot higher over the last few weeks. Like some weeks we had over 50 people, 60 people dying. So the week to week change in numbers is good. The numbers have gone down slightly. So hopefully that continues along that way. And that's our weekly COVID roundup for this week. We're going to move on back to the news section of the program. We're going to break down the Klansman trial and things that have happened within this last week. Lots happening. So for those who were here last week, Flo had handed over their records for the 3 phones that the police have that they submitted in evidence. Digicel, however, had refused to do so, and the prosecutors had asked for permission from the government to serve Digicel with papers to force them to hand over the documents. However, prosecutors advised Chief Justice Brian Sykes that the package with the data has arrived in the island and is with the Police Communications and Forensic and Cyber Crimes Unit. So Digicel willingly handed over the phone records prior to them being subpoenaed and prior to them being, given a warrant for them to hand over the documents. The prosecution expressed that it had gleaned that the company was being reluctant to hand over the data, which was a part of that last week and into this week. So, they didn't end up having to use the subpoena that was issued, because they were planning on issuing the subpoena on Monday evening, but the documents arrived Monday morning. The data arrived from Digicel's head office, and so that worked out for them. So now that they can submit those documents, they can compare the documents and submit it as a part of their evidence. So on Monday, a police inspector was on the witness stand, and he was in charge of the team that led the investigation into the Klansman gang case. He was unable to shed light on why the prosecution's second witness, who is a former member, was never charged. According to the senior officer who supported and supervised the investigation, the decision not to charge the ex-gangster was taken at another level. The police witness was grilled by senior counsel Lloyd McFarlane about the decision during cross-examination in the home circuit court. The presiding judge, Chief Justice Brian Sykes, also intervened on the attorney's behalf in a bid to get information and what he described as a great mystery surrounding the decision not to charge the ex-gangster who had confessed to being involved in serious crimes, including murders, extortion, and possession of illegal firearm and ammunition. So the judge is asking what caused him to maintain his uncharged status. Not even a caution, not even to say thank you for your information, but if you want to be in the team, you have to be charged, he asked, noting that the police must have accepted the ex-gangster's account. The judge further asked why he was not charged, even with a minor offense or charge, and given a plea deal. But the inspector said that he couldn't answer. And then when asked if his answer was if the police was refusing to answer or he was unable to answer, the police stated that the decision to not charge witness number 2 was made after he sought advice from his senior and legal team. He said that the decision not to charge witness number 2 was made at a higher level. The judge then asked the police witness if he was told about the reasons behind why witness number 2 was never charged. The police said that no, he said discussions were done about the case, but he cannot speak to the reason as to why the decision was made not to charge witness number 2. Again, the judge was pressing the police officer to try to explain why witness number 2 was free as a bird, sleeping sound at night. And he said, even today, you can't shed light on it. And the officer said, that is so, my lord, I can't answer. Like, I don't know why he wasn't charged. I don't know what was the reasoning behind. Because the judge, for some reason, the judge keep pressing about why witness number 2 wasn't charged, because apparently witness number 2 did a lot. Witness number 2 confessed to murder, and he confessed to having illegal guns and all of that stuff. And yet he wasn't charged with anything. It wasn't that he was charged and given a plea deal to say, okay, instead of serving 10 years, you'll serve 5 or whatever. Like, he was never charged with anything. So the inspector further admitted that when he had met and spoken with the ex-gangster, he had never cautioned him. He also agreed that he had instructed the lead investigator to take a witness statement from the ex-gangster, but denied that when he gave that instruction, a decision had already been taken to not charge the witness. According to the officer, there was no information that I had at the time to say that he was anything other than a witness, he said, according to the inspector. Initially, he was not aware that the witness was deeply involved in serious crimes. He said he found out later after reading portions of the statement. But he said, despite coming to that awareness, he said he was not the one who made the decision for him to charge. Again, the judge kept pressing, because the judge is saying that he's noticing a pattern. He's presided over 3 gang trials, and in those 3 gang trials, he's noticed a pattern emerging where the witnesses are coming forward that have stated that they've been involved in various activities within the gang. Those witnesses are not coming before the court in a context where it's a plea bargain or they've previous convictions or whatever. They're not getting a guilty plea. They're not getting anything. There's no consequence. He said they're just coming free as a bird, no nothing. And he's not understanding why that's happening. He's of the mind and opinion that they should be found guilty of a crime. A plea deal should be made, and then their statement or whatever, they're coming forward as crown witnesses. But so it's safe to say that the judge is a little bit perturbed that these criminals are not being charged with anything. They're just taking their statements, and they're taking their willingness to be witnesses, but they're not offering them any plea agreement. So that, so the judge wants to know if that's a policy decision to be made or whatever. The detective said he doesn't know. It's just the way it is. So I think that particular issue may be looked at another time, because the judge is saying that the gang legislation is so structured where for us to be able to collect a statement treating with incidents as it relates to the activities of a gang, the best method would be for a person from the gang to come and say these things in respect to this witness. In having interviewed him, I did not go the route of caution statement and charging, the police stated. So the judge is really, really not happy that none of them are being charged with anything. And that was on Monday. And then on Tuesday, the police officer was still on the witness stand again, and he testified that cops had found an AK-47 rifle hidden in a stack of boards at a furniture shop operated by a relative of Andre Blackman Bryan, who is the reputed leader of the One Don gang. The Home Circuit Court also heard that a magazine with 10 7.62 millimeter rounds was also found during the search in Jones Avenue, Spanish Town, St. Catherine. The police inspector who was testifying at the trial said that he was a part of a police team that went to Jonestown to arrest defendant Roel Taylor, who is Brian's cousin. According to the officer, the weapon and ammunition were found during a search of the shop that was operated by Taylor. The court was told that the shop is located a short distance away from Taylor's home. The policeman recalled that the gun was found when cops had moved a stack of boards from one side of the shop to another section. It was vertical within the stack of boards, he recollected. On seeing the weapon, the inspector said he said to Taylor, "What that I do this?" And he said, Taylor replied, saying, "Me don't know nothing about that, officer." The gun was made of metal and board, and the serial number was not visible. So prior to the search of the furniture shop, the court also heard that Taylor's house was searched and 5 cell phones, several SIM cards, and $265,000 were found. The court also heard that a civilian who was at the house was detained along with Taylor. The weapon and ammunition, the officer testified, were packaged in an evidence box and bags and labeled after the scene was processed by a forensic scene of crime officer and transported to his office for storage. He said it was later retrieved and taken to the government forensic laboratory for ballistic testing. He, however, recalled that the crime scene forensic officer did not detect any visible prints when checks were made. Both the weapon and the ballistic certificate were admitted as exhibits. The trial was adjourned yesterday, and their next trial date is January 10th. So I will keep you guys updated on January 10th when, they get back to doing what they're doing, and we'll see what's happening. But like I've always said, this Klansman trial, it's reading like a movie. And I'm sure at some point somebody will be making a movie out of it. So Project 876 Bro, God bless, just run across this channel. Well, thank you. Click the subscription box since you just run across us. Hopefully, what is being said here will keep you entertained and informed. We're going to move on to Texas. And a West Texas man was acquitted of murder Wednesday in the 2019 fatal shooting of a police officer who was shot while checking a security alarm at the man's home. Alrighty then. A Midland County jury deliberated for about 90 minutes before finding David Wilson not guilty of murder in the death of Midland police officer Nathan Heidelberg. Wilson's attorneys had told jurors that he didn't know Heidelberg was a police officer. He mistook him for an intruder and shot him in self-defense in the pre-dawn hours of March 5th, 2019. Prosecutors offered evidence showing Heidelberg, a 5-year police veteran, identified himself as a police officer while still outside the home's front door. But defense attorneys noted that Wilson hid in a closet in fear of a burglar. They said a Texas Ranger and a police trainee with Heidelberg could not rule out the possibility that Wilson did not hear Heidelberg identify himself as an officer. Wilson had initially been charged with second-degree manslaughter, but a Midland County grand jury upgraded the charge to murder. And he got away. And according to U.S. laws, he cannot be retried for murder. Double jeopardy, can't be retried. Hey, Charmaine. Hey, Carlene. Drop a hello, drop a hi. Let's see what's getting on. Enid says not getting through YouTube. Enid, I don't know what's happening with you for tonight. I don't know, Enid. I don't know. Well, hopefully, I'll see your comments from the phone. I'm not quite sure why yours isn't coming through because everybody else is coming through. So I'm not quite sure what's happening. But we're going to move on to Jamaica. We're going to go back to Jamaica and some statistics that came out of the HIV STI unit in the Health and Wellness Ministry have painted a worrying picture showing an increase in infections. Oh, Lord. Especially in parishes with significant tourism engagement. So what I'm inferring from that is the statistics show that between January 1982 and December 2020, the 6 parishes with the highest records are noticeably resort areas. Dr. Alicia Rob Allen is acting senior director of the Ministry of Health and Wellness HIV STI unit. And according to the data, it's estimated that 32,000 Jamaicans have been infected with HIV. Of that number, Dr. Rob Allen stated that 14% are unaware of their HIV status, and so they're not accessing treatment. She added that St. Anne has seen a surge in HIV cases in 2020. Oh, Lord. The unit noted that there's been a reduction in infections among the general population between 2010 and 2020. However, a slight increase has been recorded within the homeless and inmate population. The ministry says that with the advent of treatment, their active HIV/AIDS program has shifted to ensuring that people living with the disease have full access to care. Carlene says, hello. Hey, Carlene. Aren't you supposed to be sleeping already, Carlene? Don't you have a big day tomorrow? Hey, Charmaine, good night. Miss Host, and to all of the good listeners. Hey, Charmaine, how are you? How's Errol doing? How are you guys doing? Hope all is well. So 2 things I'm getting, 3 things I'm getting from this particular story. 1, there's a lot of sex in prison and people are getting HIV in prison, which if you're in prison, you're supposed to get condoms. 2, numbers in St. Anne are going up. And 3, tourist areas have more HIV and STI infections. That means that one could infer that those HIV and STI uptick in the tourism section of the island is that it's the tourists that might bring it in. One could infer that based on how this story is. So what one could state that, when tourists come in and check in, or when them come at the island, them need to be given condoms. Prisoners need to be given condoms, because if there's an uptick in the STI in the prisons, so prisoners need to be given condoms, and tourists, when they land, they need to be either given a pamphlet or condoms to say, hey, these things that you're bringing in here, we don't want it. But that's what's happening right now. I just thought it was quite interesting that was a case that STIs and HIV are on the uptick, specifically in tourist areas. So we're going to move on to Baltimore, and this particular situation that occurred, parts of it was shown on YouTube. The guy, he Charmaine said, why prisoners having sex when they're in punishment? Oh, Charmaine. Well, what people always say, people eat salt, so they might go have nature. People, whether short-term or long-term prisoners, but more on the long-term prisoners, they go in straight and them start lean up when them go in, because they're not coming back out. So them start go lean when them go in. When them start go lean, they're not using any protection. So everybody a slap, no protection. So most people go in straight. Them not stay straight in there. Them all walk clean, because what else them all do? I'm just, that's what I hear. So that's what it is. But yeah. Charmaine said, take away their right. That's one right you cannot take away, because how you take it away unless you cut it off. And it goes for both man and woman. So how you can't take that away. Can't, it's not going to work. It's not good. But it is interesting that prison, tour, and tourist areas are the main areas for STI right now in Jamaica. So you can infer that the tourists them are coming and are bringing them disease, and the guys that are servicing the tourist areas are servicing the tourist areas in more ways than one, and they are being infected, and they're in turn infecting their partners and all of that. So all of them something. So I don't understand. Enid said them eating it salt too. That is true. Charmaine says give them something to curtail their desires. Is there such a thing that will do that though? Other than your inability to rise to the occasion, is there something that will take away the urge? But I don't know. I don't know if there's something that will take away the urge for them to do that. But so it means that more condoms need to be given out in prisons, both condoms for women and condoms for men, in order to cut down on the STIs in prison. More condoms need to be given out in prisons. They want to state that prisoners aren't having sex, but that's just naive to think that prisoners aren't having sex. Very naive. So hand out condoms, hand out dental dams. You're not stating that they should have sex, but you're saying if you're going to have sex, protect yourself, because this is what can happen. Because they're not gonna get the treatment. And them not get the treatment, so they might as well get some protection. So we're going to circle around to Baltimore, and a man forced his way into a Federal Hill home and shot his ex-girlfriend to death on Saturday before heading to Colombia, where he gunned down his ex-wife and took his own life. Between the killings, the suspect took to Facebook Live outside of a Columbia apartment building where he says he's upset about custody issues with both women. Anyways, I just did something crazy, man. I just shot my ex-girlfriend in the head, he says. Felt like a dream. I never thought I would be that guy. I can't go to prison. So the person that really started my depression and all of this is my ex-wife. So she next. And I'm going to do myself too. In that moment, his ex-wife opens the door and he says, oh, there's my ex-wife right now. And then the video cut. Like all of that was live on Facebook. And then the video cut. The Facebook video was reposted to Twitter by a woman who wrote that she was friends with the gunman. The apartment building number visibly. The video is the same that county police had blocked off Saturday evening. This is a terrible, terrible tragedy. Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison told reporters near the city crime scene. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of these victims. Authorities said they were not identifying the gunman or victims until they had been able to reach next of kin. Police spokeswoman confirmed the gunman's relationship to the two victims. On this Facebook page, he posted often about working as a nurse anesthetist. Jesus. Officers said when they arrived at the apartment, the back door to a home had been kicked in. A neighbor who declined to be identified said her Ring security camera picked up the sound of 6 gunshots inside the residence. Harrison said officers found a dead woman who had been shot. The officers alerted homicide detectives. The woman was 41 years old. And then shortly thereafter, Baltimore investigators learned about a video on social media in which the suspect described his intent to commit another homicide in Colombia. Harrison said they notified Howard County Police immediately. Officers were dispatched around 2:08 p.m. for shots fired in a certain area. And they said when they arrived at 2:14 p.m., they found 2 people dead in the vestibule of an apartment building. The dead woman was believed to be in her 40s. And Howard County officers got a call from their counterparts in Baltimore about around 2:22 p.m. about the video. Llewellyn said, back in Baltimore, residents gathered around Harrison and Mayor Brandon Scott as they prepared to brief news reporters. Again, another man who can handle him situation and decides that him will kill the woman and blame him ex-wife and him ex-girlfriend about them situation. Like, who are going to raise them pitney now? Thankfully, in this instance, the man killed himself so people not to waste taxpayers' money to feed him in a prison. But who are going to look after them pitney? Who is going to look after them child? Enid said this is sad in every way. Very, very sad. Because who is going to look after their child? I don't understand at all what's happening. I don't understand. But we're moving on to California, and the father and son have been arrested and accused of starting the Caldor fire that burned more than 200,000 acres. 200,000 acres in California earlier this week. The suspects, David Scott Smith, age 66, and Travis Shane Smith, age 32, are accused of reckless arson, which caused inhabited properties to burn and resulted in great bodily injury to multiple victims. Criminal charges against the two have not yet been filed, and the district attorney did not elaborate on how the fire was started. The Caldor fire scorched El Dorado and Amador counties near Sacramento in August and September, and mandatory evacuations were issued for parts of California and Nevada. Severe drought exacerbated the wildfire, which grew to nearly 100,000 acres in size in its first week. At one point in September, nearly 15,000 personnel were on the front lines working to contain 13 active large wildfires. 200,000 1,000 acres. Oh, no, if you come out of jail. There is no way y'all should be getting out of jail. No way, no time soon. Nope, not at all. No, no, no. Moving on to New York, and we are going to do another update on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It continues. For the last week and a half, we had the four girls that testified. Last week we ended with the pilot that he was on the stand. He was testifying. So this week we'll continue with the pilot, and then there's a couple other people that are things. So I'm going to start with the pilot and what he's testified, and then move on from there. So Jeffrey Epstein's former pilot testified that a who's who of powerful men, including former presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, flew aboard Epstein's private plane. The pilot, Larry Vysotsky, said he would typically be given notice if Clinton or high-profile passengers like him would be flying. He recalled renowned violinist Itzhak Perlman flew to Michigan with Epstein for the Interlochen Center for the Arts summer camp. He said he remembered Prince Andrew, Maine Senator George Mitchell, Ohio Senator John Glenn, and actor Kevin Spacey on flights. He also said he'd fly Epstein to Columbus, Ohio, where Epstein also had property, to see billionaire businessman Les Wexner. There's always been some intriguing speculation about Jeffrey Epstein's relationship to Les Wexner. Epstein referred to Wexner as his client, but Vysotsky said he believed them to be friends as well. None of the high-profile passengers mentioned in Vysotsky's testimony Tuesday are alleged to have committed any wrongdoing in relation to the ongoing trial. Vysotsky's testimony came on the second day of Maxwell's federal trial on charges of conspiracy and sex trafficking. He testified Maxwell frequently traveled on Epstein's private jet between 1994 and 2004, and would often facilitate travel plans with Vysotsky for Epstein. Maxwell was Epstein's number two and was his go-to person to handle everything else that was not business related, the pilot testified. He described his memory of the pair's relationship as more personal than businesslike, but more couplish than actually romantic. He didn't remember seeing them kiss or hold hands, he said. Logging the names of all passengers on Epstein's private flight was not a priority, but they tried their best to be accurate. For international flights, he said he had to report an accurate passenger log. If he didn't know a passenger's name, he'd notate the passenger by their gender. So the pilot has finished his testimony. The prosecution tried and was successful in getting more than a dozen photographs being displayed as part of their exhibit of what's the word I'm looking for? Exhibitions. So what the photographs were to show was to show that they wanted to show that Maxwell and Epstein had more than just a business relationship. Okay, so they wanted to show the carefree surface of a relationship that, according to witness testimony, masked darker depths. They were introduced by the government over defense objections as prosecutors sought to document through the images Miss Maxwell's long-standing relationship with Mr. Epstein. Miss Maxwell's lawyers have not said publicly who they will call to testify, but said they will put on a case that is expected to last no more than 4 days. They suggested that they want to present at least one expert witness to counter testimony from an expert called by the government who described a process known as grooming. Grooming is a process that is used by sexual predators to target victims and acclimate them to abuse. But the timeline that the abuses occurred with the girls, they also implicate Miss Maxwell but the timeline implies that Miss Maxwell herself is unlikely to testify, and jurors will not hear firsthand about her relationship with Mr. Epstein, which in many ways is at the center of the case. The government has contended that Miss Maxwell was Mr. Epstein's best friend and right hand, even after a personal, intimate relationship ended. She was described during an opening statement as his willing accomplice. Miss Maxwell, a prosecutor, said, walked the girls into a room where she knew that men would molest them. The photographs that the prosecutors were successful in getting shown as exhibits are part of a trove found in 2019 when FBI agents searched Mr. Epstein's townhouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, where some of those abuse was said to have taken place. Prosecutors said at the time that the authorities had seized hundreds of pictures of nude or partially nude young girls and young women and girls, some of which had been stored in a safe. Defense lawyers objected to the photographs of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell being shown in court, saying that there was no testimony that the images were unaltered and suggesting that it was not necessary for the government to enter multiple pictures into evidence. But prosecutor Alison Moe told the judge that overseeing the case that the relationship between Ms. Maxwell and Mr. Epstein is central to the case because the defense has repeatedly tried to distance Ms. Maxwell from Mr. Epstein and his affairs and argued that things were compartmentalized. She said a large number of photos were needed to show that Ms. Maxwell had been more than a functionary in Mr. Epstein's world. Prosecutors are saying that these photographs showed how close the relationship were throughout time, and given the change in hairstyles, the people in the photographs are clearly aging. The judge agreed, and the next day the pictures were being flashed onto a screen in the court, visible to jurors and the public, and offering a glimpse into part of Ms. Maxwell and Mr. Epstein's private life together. Just as the photos provide little insight into the inner lives of Ms. Maxwell and Mr. Epstein, their potential impact on the jurors is difficult to assess. One photograph that was shown to the jury was entered into evidence under seal, meaning members of the public may not see it. Ms. Meader offered no details of what it depicted, but a pretrial motion filed by prosecutors identified that image as a photograph of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell swimming together while nude. They're stating that the photographs are relevant to the relationship, as it established that there's a personal relationship and an intimate relationship between the two. So to the extent the defense at trial argues that the defendant was merely an employee, the photograph is evidence to the contrary. And on Thursday, which was today, Ghislaine Maxwell's former executive assistant testified at the sex abuse trial that she never saw Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein engage in inappropriate conduct with underage girls. Simberly Espinosa, age 55, was the first witness called by Maxwell defense team following 2 weeks of testimony from 4 women who said Maxwell groomed them between 1994 and 2004 for abuse by the late financier Jeffrey Epstein. According to Espinosa, she says, I highly respected Ghislaine, added that she and Maxwell were together just about every day between 1996 and 2002, when Espinosa worked for the daughter of the late British Baron. I look up to her very much, Espinosa said. Espinosa also said Jane appeared to be 18 years old when she visited Epstein's office with her mother and brother. She testified that she was aware of the crimes Maxwell had been accused of. When asked by Everdell whether she ever saw Maxwell or Epstein engage in inappropriate conduct with underage girls, Espinosa replied, never. Under cross-examination, Espinosa acknowledged that she never traveled to Epstein's Palm Beach, Florida estate, where Jane said most of her abuse took place. Undermining the credibility of Jane and the other accusers is a key part of Maxwell's defense. Now, if Espinosa has been with Ghislaine every day between 1996 and 2002. How is it that Espinosa has never been to Palm Beach? Espinosa need to be charged with perjury. Her lawyers have argued that the woman's memories have faded over the years and that the women have a financial incentive to implicate Maxwell since they received awards from a compensation fund set up for Epstein's victims. Espinosa needs to be charged with perjury because she lied. She lie. Anyways, that's the wrap up for the update on that particular murder trial. It continues. I will keep giving you guys updates as, time goes on. We're going to move on to Florida. And former national NFL player Josh Bellamy has been sentenced to 3 years and 1 month in federal prison for fraudulently obtaining over $1.2 million in COVID-19 relief funds. PPP is going to be the death of these people. Bellamy, age 32, of St. Petersburg, Florida, was sentenced Friday in Tampa federal court, according to court records. He pleaded guilty in June to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Besides serving prison time, Bellamy must also pay restitution. Bellamy most recently played for the New York Jets, who released him from the reserve physically unable to play list in September 2020, just days before his arrest. The wide receiver had been placed on the list in May of that year, ending his season before it began. He had signed a 2-year deal worth $5 million with New York in 2019 and played in 7 games before injuring his shoulder and being placed on the season-ending injured reserved list. According to court records, Bellamy obtained a Paycheck Protection Program loan of $1.2 million for his company Drip Entertainment, LLC, using falsified documents and false information. Bellamy admitted to using the loan proceeds on personal items such as jewelry and a stay at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Bellamy also sought loans on behalf of his family members and close associates. Bellamy also told investigators that he paid more than $311,000 to an alleged co-conspirator, James Stott, as a kickback for his assistance in preparing and submitting the fraudulent loan applications. As part of the same scheme, a South Florida woman was sentenced Thursday to 2 years in federal prison for fraudulently obtaining a PPP loan. According to the documents, Yashika Bain, age 38, of Miramar, previously pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Apparently, she obtained a PPP loan of $415,232 for her company Microblading Bro Studio, LLC, using falsified documents and false information. Prosecutors said she admitted to paying Stott more than $28,000 as a kickback for his assistance in preparing and submitting the fraudulent loan application. She was also ordered to pay restitution. Stott was charged in June 2020 with wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud. His case is pending. PPP loan sending everybody to jail in the U.S. Everybody going to jail for PPP loan. Good night, Nana. Thanks for checking in. Have a good night. Have a safe week and enjoy the holidays. We're going to move on to Baltimore, and a woman who helped her father cover up his wife's 2018 murder with a tale of a knife-wielding panhandler has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. Valeria Smith was sentenced Monday, 2 years after pleading guilty to acting as an accessory after the slaying of Jacqueline Smith, admitting that she ditched her stepmother's purse at a bus stop to support the panhandler's story. Keith Smith told police his wife, an engineer at an army facility, was knifed by a man after handing $10 to a female panhandler who appeared to be holding a baby. Smith's version of his wife's slaying drew national attention as he and his daughter gave tearful interviews. Oprah Winfrey, once a newscaster in Baltimore, tweeted that the tragic case would make her reconsider handing out cash to panhandlers. Eventually, the story fell apart as details in Smith's story changed and investigators reviewed surveillance camera footage along the Smiths' supposed route that night and didn't see their vehicle or the panhandlers. Valeria Smith testified last week at her father's trial that her stepmother was dozing in the front passenger seat when her father stabbed her. Afterward, Keith Smith coached his daughter and what they would tell police. Keith Smith was convicted Thursday of first-degree murder and faces life in prison at sentencing on February 28th. Valeria Smith had been locked up nearly 3 years while awaiting her sentence. So is she going to have to spend 5 years on top of the 3 that she's already spent, or will she be given time for good? How you make your father convince you to tell lie for him in a murder situation? That don't make it. Man, we're going to move on to North Carolina. And Philip Adams, the former NFL player who in April shot to death 6 people and killed himself, suffered from the debilitating brain disease chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. The doctor who conducted the brain study announced earlier this week. Ann McKee, who is a neuropathologist who, as director of Boston University CTE Center, led the examination of Adams' brain, presented the findings during a news conference in North Carolina, where the killings occurred back in April. CTE is a neurodegenerative disease linked to concussions and repetitive head trauma from football and other contact sports, and has been associated with behavioral and mood changes, according to the Mayo Clinic and multiple studies that have been done. Adams was found to have had stage 2 CTE, with stage 4 being the most severe. In the Adams shootings, those killed included a prominent local doctor, his wife, and their 2 children. Also, 2 men working at the doctor's home were killed as well. Toxicology analysis of Adams' brain showed amphetamines for which he had a prescription, according to the coroner. That included kratom, a drug that can be purchased over the counter and in low doses worked as a stimulant, and in higher doses can have an opiate effect, according to the coroner, who said there is no FDA-approved use for the drug. The coroner said she did not know how the drugs might have affected Adams' behavior. Adam was age 32 at the time of the killings, and he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. At the time of his death, his family members donated his brains to be studied so that they could see whether or not he was suffering from CTE. Unfortunately, CTE can only be diagnosed after death because that's when they analyze the brain tissues. Adam's sister Lauren told USA Today Sports that Adams' behavior shifted dramatically over the past couple of years. His mental health degraded fast and terrible. Lauren Adams told USA the day after the shooting there was unusual behavior. I'm not going to get into all the symptoms. They definitely did notice the signs of mental illness that was extremely concerning to them, and it was not like they'd known him to be. She said he wasn't a monster. He was struggling with his mental health. She said Adams was desperately seeking help from the NFL. And, after going through his records from his football career, we know that he was desperately seeking help from the NFL, but was denied all claims due to his inability to remember things and to handle seemingly simple tasks, such as traveling hours away to see doctors and going through extensive evaluations. We now know that his deficits were most likely caused by the disease. The NFL has not responded to any requests for comments as yet. The coroner also said Adams' family told her that the former NFL player complained of excruciating pain from his injuries. often had memory issues and difficulty sleeping. Adams's case has fueled ongoing talk about the apparent link between CTE and violence. Lauren Adams told USA Today Sports she thinks her brother was seeing a therapist before he retired from football and subsequently saw other doctors for his mental health issues. As things got progressively worse, she said her brother neglected his hygiene and withdrew from people. He's also been into look. He's always been into looking nice, she said. Like he's always been a ladies' man. He stopped dating. It was just a lot of things that were part of his character that just disappeared. So many people come up to me or call me or text me and ask me, what's going on with your brother? And I'm like, I don't know. Mood changes are related to CTE. Which often involves problems with depression, irritability, loss of motivation, or suicidal thinking or behavior. They're gonna have to find a way to figure it out. They're gonna have to find a way to figure out testing for that particular disease before people die, because right now they can't do that. Right now you have to die before they analyze their brain. They're gonna have to figure out a way, because he's probably the third or fourth football player that have either killed other people and killed themselves or just killed themselves. Aaron Hernandez, what's that? Andre Seo. There's another guy. He's about the fourth person right now and they all have the same pattern where they start changing. They start being irrational. They start lashing out on people until it ends up with people dying. So there has to be a way for them to figure that out. And you can't play football without hitting. I'm not sure how they're going to facilitate playing football or any other sports without hitting, but I don't know what they're going to do. Some doctor will figure it out. That's above my pay grade right now. And we're going to circle back to Jamaica. And I found this story quite interesting. So, a promoter in one of the island's western parishes said taboo parties have grown in popularity recently, as she believes society is becoming acceptable of sexual acts performed outside the bedroom. The promoter, whose name is being withheld, will be hosting a risque event next week. This comes in light of the much publicized event held on the weekend dubbed Combo, in which patrons could receive a combo of oral sex and full intercourse for $5,000. The Western Jamaica promoter said taboo events are being adopted as the entertainment sector grapples with the impact of COVID-19. People don't want to see the regular parties anymore where they listen to music and dance. They want entertainment, so I book girls for the party. I do this to entice people to attend so that the crowd can come and that I can make some money. People are into stuff like this because the freaky girls would come and they let themselves loose and they would be the talk of the town, the promoter shared. The girls who are normally nude dubbed themselves licensed freaks who perform illicit acts, much to the delight of patrons. The promoter said her party series started in 2019 and would normally be themed, prompting patrons to be dressed in either lingerie or skimpy clothing. At the events, women are given free lingerie or swimwear, but the promoter admitted she had to shift her focus and make a name change for the event when the pandemic caused a shutdown of the entertainment sector. While the promoter noted that she was aware of the guidelines, she's open that patrons would attend early in order not to breach the curfew. It starts at 12 p.m., but you know how people stay. I can't force them to come out early, and I don't control when they leave. At my party, sexual stuff happened already. The girls them come and said they're freaks, and them have to do what them have to do to entertain the crowd. I can't really stop them. It's entertainment, she says. Freaky party is the new norm in Jamaica. Freaky party, freaky party. So that's our news topics for the night. We're going to go into our soul chattings. And our soul chattings for the night is experience isn't always the best teacher. A safer way to gain wisdom is to learn from the mistakes of others. Again, experience isn't always the best teacher. A safer way to gain wisdom is to learn from the mistakes of others. So I thank you for tuning in. For those of you who have tuned in and who've stayed with me till the end, our next session will be on January 13th. Taking the holidays off because most people will be out partying and circulating with their family and stuff. So I'm going to do that as well. So season 3, episode 36 will be on January 13th. So enjoy the holidays, be safe, enjoy the time with your family. See you on the 13th of January. There'll be some changes. There'll be some interviews next year and all of that stuff. So happy holidays. Thanks for tuning in. Happy holidays, Carlene. Good luck tomorrow. Happy holidays, Enid. Thank you guys for tuning in with me every week. I so appreciate you and all that you guys do and spending your time with me. There'll be some interviews in the new year. I'll have a couple of guest hosts, changing things up a bit, make it a little spicy and all of that stuff. I have to change up stuff, get news, more stories and all of that. So more changes to come, but I thank you guys and I appreciate you. Enid says good night, everyone. Have a blessed weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy the Christmas. Happy New Year and all of that stuff. Right? Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.